Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Dean Howard Treible. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, Transformation, available for purchase through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I will say, Dean was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. Author Reputation Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact ARP. You can find out more information on them at authorreputationpress.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Dean, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you for being a guest. How are you?
Fine, Benji. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're very much looking forward to this. As I stated, the pleasure is all ours, and I know the education that we're going to receive is going to be so valuable, and it's really going to start so many discussions. And that, I think, is where so much of the power lies in your book. Now, Dean, before we go into the book, let's hold off slightly. Start by articulating to our listening audience a little bit more about yourself, please.
Well, I'll tell you what, I certainly didn't intend to be a writer. I'm in the accounting field right now. I've been in that field for in excess of 50 years. I did have some opportunity during that time to teach Bible study at a couple churches, and that's really what got me interested in some of the information that we're going to talk about. My references basically are the Bible and the Book of Enoch, which is an antediluvian type writing. It was actually written by Enoch in the pre-flood time, and this is where some of the fantastic information comes from. It started with information right out of the Bible, and then when you add some additional information from the Book of Enoch, it just blows your mind.
What a way to start. Dean, without further ado, let's jump right in. Transformation. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, the title of the book really has to do with, if you look in the Webster Dictionary, the definition of transformation says it is to change in composition and structure. Another definition from Vine's Expository Dictionary says to change from one form to another. Now, those are your basic definitions, but one of the definitions that I wanted to talk about, which will be some of the crux of what we're talking about when we look in the Bible and talk about transformation, is molecular transformation. That means to change from one elemental form to another through elemental division or composition. Now, if you have any listeners who had high school science or actually chemistry, they would maybe know that term. It's talking about the elemental chart. And this is where we're going when it comes to transformation. This book began by viewing some videos, and your audience may be familiar with this, videos on the internet concerning missing and abducted people from national parks. And so when I saw this kind of video, this really struck a nerve, and I said, how can this happen? How can this type of thing happen right out of these people that disappeared were among other people? It wasn't like they were someplace in the woods and they disappeared type of thing. One of the videos that really struck me was that there was this little boy who disappeared from his parents in the national park, and I don't remember which national park it was, but he disappeared, and of course the family was frantic, obviously, and so they sent out a search team to try to find this child. And the search team searched and searched and searched, and after several hours, they began to really spread out and go farther away from the area that the child went missing. Come to find out that they found the child. Child was dead, but the child was miles and miles away from the site that the child disappeared and on the top of a mountain. Now, anybody that thinks about that is going to say, well, gosh, a little child is not going to be able to travel all that distance, not going to be able to travel to the top of a mountain. And how did this child die? Well, when they looked at the child had no broken bones. The child had no physical scratches, bites, anything like that. So this kind of thing precluded maybe being abducted by an animal or something like that. So this got me thinking to say, first of all, how could the child have been abducted without somebody seeing? How could the child have gone to that kind of distance? And how could the child have gone up to the top of the mountain, be dead, and not have any physical evidence of any kind of, hurt on his body? So that led me to the idea of demons. And I thought to myself, I need to research this. And when I started researching that, it was a cascading type of effect. It ended up being that once you found something out, you now opened up another Pandora's box, let's say, of something that you really need to know about. And so in researching demon activity, first thing that came up is, well, where did they come from? Well, when you research that, you determine, how actually what happened was that I was using some commentary books in certain areas, and some of the information that I'm seeing is that these commentary writers would say, we don't know where demons came from. And I'm thinking to myself, how can that be? The Bible is fraught with demon experiences, Jesus coming against demons and like that. And so that then led to the reading of the book of Enoch. I don't remember exactly how I got the information about the book of Enoch, but as soon as I heard that it was about in this area, in this genre, I said, I got to get this book and see what it has to say. So once I got the book, that cascaded on down and kept going down, finding out about demons. And then the Genesis chapter 6 became really part of the book, and it piqued my attention too. And this is where the Bible talks about the giants. Specifically in chapter 6, verse 4, it says, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, they bare children to them, the same becoming mighty men, which were of old men of renown. Now, this is the area that was the real research, because the information that I had read concerning this ended up being very, very suspect. What people had said before concerning this area, I just did not agree with. So I started my research and one of the things that, when we're talking about giants, was the idea that that verse really talks about two types of giants. It says that there were giants in the land, and then it says that angels had relations with the daughters of men, and they bear children. Well, the first thing is that the giants were already there, or there were giants already there. Now, this lends back to the fall of the angels. This is where we're going to start here, the fall of the angels, indicated in the book of Isaiah. The book of Isaiah talks about the fall of Satan. And fall of Satan was the beginning of this whole idea of giants. Satan fell and he took angels with him. So when he fell, that relates to the chapter 6 in Genesis. The angels that fell, first of all, in order to agree with that verse, when I did the research, I kind of started there and kind of worked back on the definition and the understanding. So when you go to the chapter 6, you find out that there were giants, but then there are also angels that had relations with the daughters of men, and they bore children. Okay, the term Nephilim, which a lot of people have heard that term actually means fallen ones, which is actually the fallen angels. So when we talk about Nephilim, we're talking about the fallen angels. Now, the book of Enoch goes into it a little bit more in depth for the idea of this is what really happened, and the book of Enoch kind of expounds more on what happened. The book of Enoch talks about the fact that when Satan and the angels fell, transformation came in to that situation, and they actually changed themselves into two groups, the giants and what the book of Enoch calls watchers. Now, the watchers, Satan and the watchers actually transform themselves into humans. Now, that's a fantastic statement that I just made there. And people are going to say, what? So when they did that, this is how sex occurred. And children were born of them. Now, now what you have is huge giants. Book of Enoch says that they were 3,000 cubits high, which translating that into feet is 4,500 feet high. That's 3.5 times the height of the Empire State Building. That's a huge giant. Mm-hmm. And the other group, the book of Enoch actually states the names of the watchers and basically says about those that they had the relationship with the daughters of men, and they birthed giants also. So now what you have is a situation where you have the Nephilim out there, and then you have the relations, the prodigy birthed by the angels and the women, okay? Now, here's where I think theologians and preachers get messed up, is that they want to try to use this idea to say that these angels were the demons. No, that is just not true. They were not the demons that roamed the earth before the flood. The the demons, the book of Enoch basically says that the demons were the result of the birthing of the prodigy between the angels and the women. And when those individuals died, either before the flood or definitely at the flood, they became spirits. Obviously, when somebody dies, your spirit in biblical times, or what people believe when they die, your spirit goes to heaven, and basically, you're there. But when these spirits died, the book of Enoch said that they became evil spirits on the earth. That is demons. Now, the reason why I say that the Nephilim and the children born to them were not the demons, because there's two verses in the Bible that talk about what happened to these the Watchers and the demons that were the giants. In 2 Peter 2, 4, and 5, it says, "For God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved upon judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly." And then in Jude 6 it says, "The angels which kept not their first estate, which are the fallen angels, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day." Now, this is what happened, is that God saw what was happening on the earth. This was a great sin. I talk about it. In fact, that's one of the chapters that in the book. It talks about the great sin. And this was what it was that these 4,500-foot giants were destroying the world that God had created. Can you imagine something that large? First of all, the major thing is, what's that thing going to eat? Well, what the book of Enoch says is that he ate everything. He ate vegetation. He ate plants and vegetables and everything that grew. But he couldn't possibly be satisfied because of his height and his girth, obviously. But then it also goes on to say, when he wasn't satisfied with that, he started eating men. Wow, that's just something that most people could not even think about. That's such a fabulous statement. But that's what the book is saying. He started eating men. God is watching all this. Now, when God sees that these angels are having relationships with men and birthing a hybrid type of human being, he said, no, this has got to stop. And this is where these verses come in. He took these angels and he put them in the abyss under chains of darkness until the day of judgment. And this is why we're not talking about the Nephilim as the demons that are in our world today. Now, let me get you to come in, and so basically, this is where it starts when we talk about demons. So, demons are birthed, and they died, or the individuals died, and they gave the spirits of the demons up. We still have those demons in the world today. We may not recognize them in our Western culture today, but they're prevalent in a lot of the third world countries of the world today.
Dean, wow. My goodness. You know, listen, you are so passionate about what you're discussing. I had a list full of questions ready to go over, and you went literally down the line and answered all of them before I even had to ask, right? Such pertinent information and absolutely fascinating listening to what you're saying. Now, again, I don't want to go into too much more detail because you've covered so much already. You know, the only question that I can come up with and ask from that is, talk to me a little bit more about that transformation and what you mean.
Well, the transformation, this is kind of the crux of it right here. And the transformation occurred in the book of Exodus. In the book of Exodus, we have the account of Moses and Aaron who came to Pharaoh. The story is about Moses and Aaron going to Pharaoh and requesting that Pharaoh allow the Hebrews to leave slavery and to worship in their own land. And as the story goes on, Pharaoh says no, no, no. But some of the things that happened to try to convince Pharaoh to leave the children of Israel go, in one of the events, this is where I focused on the molecular transformation. And let me go ahead and give you the story here. It says, and Moses and Aaron went into Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded them. Now here it is. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh. Now, when it says rod, it's really talking about a tree branch, a staff, okay? It says he cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. So, right there is the transformation. He had a tree branch, and when he cast the tree branch down, it became a serpent. That is transformation, okay? Now, the important part about this whole story at this point, it says next then that it says then the Pharaoh called his wise men and his sorcerers, and these were the magicians of Egypt, and it says that they did in like manner with their enchantments. And it says they cast down every man that was Pharaoh's magician, and their rods became snakes. Okay, so what do we have here? Basically, we have a God-inspired transformation. That was Moses and Aaron. That was God doing that through them. But the other thing is that Pharaoh's magicians also did this. Now, Pharaoh's magicians are not controlled by God. They are controlled by Satan. So what this event basically says is that Satan can do transformation just out of this one event. Now, the conflict goes on, and Moses and Aaron turn the Nile River to blood, and Pharaoh's magicians can do this also. Now, we talk about transformation. Transformation is from the molecular structure of a tree branch to the molecular structure of a snake. Completely different. Same thing with the Nile River. You're taking H2O, the river, and you're transforming it into blood, which has a different molecular structure. So, if what I wanted to say here was that this is the indication that Satan can transform. And this is the evidence that I just mentioned before, that if Satan can transform, by changing the molecular structure of anything, then he can easily, certainly change from the molecular structure of an angel to a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we know, and this is a fact, that all living things are made out of the same elements. And Satan controls areas where these elements reside: oxygen, hydrogen, all the elements that are gas elements. Satan is the ruler of the airwaves, so therefore he has control over those elements. Now, these are all elements. These are elements from the elemental chart in chemistry that everybody knows about. And so therefore, when we find out from this event that Satan can do these things, we now find out that Satan has this kind of power.
What I love about this is so much has already been discussed, but we've barely scratched the surface. I mean, listen, I can sit here and I can talk to Dean for hours. This is something that absolutely fascinates me. And this is something right up my alley. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Okay? So the onus is now on you. You know what you have to do. Amazon, Barnes & Noble are the places you have to go. Transformation is the title you have to pick up. And Dean Howard Treible is the author you have to thank for bringing it to our table. Dean, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji. I appreciate it.